Hello guys and welcome back to my channel, and in today's video we are going to discuss about mappings and outputs. So let's see what are mappings and how we can use mappings inside our CloudFormation template. So mapping is an optional block of a CloudFormation template, but this becomes very important for some situations, and it is very important to understand about the basic concept about mappings. All right. So let's see about the definition. The optional mapping section helps you to create key value pairs that can be used to specify values based on certain conditions or dependencies. We will talk later what are these conditions or dependencies. And one common use case for the mapping section is to set values based on the Amazon region where the stack is deployed, or it can be based on environment, right? Because you sometimes have noticed if you are working in a company, then you have multiple environments running. So might be sometimes you use a low specification EC2 instance for, you can say, dev or testing environment, or you can use a high specification EC2 instance only production environment. Okay. So this is a situation where you have to differentiate. If you're using dev, then use this particular specification, or if it's a prod, then use this value. Or if you're talking about regions, which is just an example given by the AWS as well. So let's say you are in AP Southeast 2. You are going to deploy an EC2 instance. You want to use an AMI, but it is not possible, or sometimes it is not necessary. The AMI which you are going to use for this region also exists in for some other region. Maybe you have services or you want to deploy and two EC2 instance. One is in AP Southeast 2 and one in the US. So in both of the regions, it is not important the AMI will be same, or most of the cases it's not same. So you are going to define a mapping where you define AMI with the keys and then you define the mappings. So in the key, I will give you in the later video like what is the syntax of the mapping. You're actually going to define, okay, so this is the region. If this is the region, then you need this AMI value, this one, okay? And we can then define it inside the confirmation template. All right. So we have defined the mapping. The other question is how we can call this mapping inside the template or resources. Okay. So yesterday we have talked about two intrinsic parameters which are used for parameters and get attributes. So in the same way, there is a intrinsic function which is this is the one FindInMap, which is used to check the key value inside the mapping. So let's go and see the syntax. So syntax is pretty much straightforward. We are going to define the mapping blocks the same way we are going to define parameters and resource block inside confirmation template. It is just like that. Inside the mapping block, we are defining this logical ID of the uh, mapping, okay, which we need to use. In the mapping logical name, we are having a key, then it comes with a name and value pair. So you can say that we can have multiple values, multiple keys inside the mappings, and key 1, key 2, and key 3 should be unique. Okay, these can be the same, but you can use, let's say if we talk about t2.micro, this the same instance that can be used in the prod, can be used in the other environment, but we are just want to make it differentiation. So but it can be possible. Okay, so this is the basically syntax of mapping. If we come down and see in detail, mapping logical name is the logical name for the mapping. This is how we will calling inside the intrinsic function. Within the mapping, each map is a key followed by another mapping. So within the mapping, we are having a key, and this is actually the mapping. This is a name. This is a name, but we are defining the mapping actually over here. Okay. The key must be a map of name value pair and unique within the mapping. Okay. So the key should be unique. The value pair can be same, but key should be unique. And an important thing is the value can be, it's only string. Okay, and you can define it as a list as well. All right, so let's say an example. For a syntax example, we have a mapping. This is the logical ID region map. So for region 1, this is name and this is the value. Okay, and for US West 1, this is the name, this is the value, and you can see that this is unique, but the key value is same, right? So this needs to be unique, right? So that you can differentiate. Otherwise, if you have a same value US East 1 and US East 1, but here you are defining T2 micro and here you can define T2 macro. This is becomes an error, okay? So you have to be very logical when you're defining the mappings. Okay. So now let's see how we are going to complete example, and then we're going to actually deploy the solution in the environment and see how this works. So here, this is a template. I have defined a mapping. I am using AMI for different regions. So for example, we have US East 1, US West 2, EU West 1, and inside these regions, we are defining a list of AMIs. My AMI 1, this is the value. My AMI 2, this is the value. All right. So inside the resource for image ID, FindInMap, I have used that intrinsic function, and how it works. It needs to refer to this mapping which we have defined over here. Over here, this is a mapping. Refer to AWS column region. So basically, it is getting the region information from the AWS, and inside this one, when it's find the region, it check my one value. All right. So let's say this has when it is reference to the region, it comes with US East 1. Then it check, okay, so what is the value of my M1 inside this region? It get, and this is the value it find. Okay. All right. So basically, this is the concept of mappings, and let's talk about outputs as well. And then we will go to the example which we are going to deploy very soon. So outputs is pretty much what resources you are going to define. You try to get that value after you deploy the resources, and this becomes important sometimes because you can refer to these outputs in some other stacks. So this help us to you can say collaborate the resources which have already created to use in some other stacks as well. And plus, if right now we are using one stack only to deploy all these resources, but in the near videos we will talk about the nested stack concept. So this output concept will be very important for those nested stacks. So let's start with the outputs. So the optional output section declares output value for a stack. These output values can be used in various ways. You can capture important details about your resources, and you can do cross stack references. This is what I just explained. You can import output value into the other stack. All right. And capture important details about your resource, and output is a convenient way to capture important information about your resources. For example, you can output the S3 bucket name for a stack to make the bucket easier to find. Okay, you can just take an output. If you don't need to export, you just want to like for your information, you can capture this output as well. Okay, so let's see the syntax. Syntax is pretty much straightforward. It has like the name comes as outputs. Okay, it is just like the block name, like in the previous sections where we have discussed mapping, resource, and parameters. It is just like outputs. Under the output, again, this becomes the logical ID of the output. Then you need to give the description of the output and what is the value that is returned by the resource. Okay, so value to return, and then you need to export this value name of resource to export. Okay, and this export is very important. And one very important concept which I want to elaborate, for example, you have export this value here, and you are using this value, you have imported this value or this output in some other stack. So it is not possible to delete this stack unless or until you remove this dependency on the other stack. Okay, otherwise it will not be removed. So yeah, this is pretty much the straightforward definitions. The logical ID, also called logical name, and identifier for different outputs. The logical ID, it is the basically having this particular naming convention. Description is optional. You don't need to define the description. It is not important. But if you give description like what is this output for, you can just give some important information. It is a string. Value is important. It is required. So you have to mention what actually you want to get. You want to get just the name of the resource, or you want to get some attribute of the resource, or what information you actually want. And export is also you can say optional. In some cases, you can just check the value. Okay, like if you don't want to use or reuse this particular resource for some other stack, you don't need to do the export. But if you just want to see the output, you just not define export and proceed without any definition of export. Okay. So here it is defining an output. This is a logical name. It has defined the description, the DNS name of the backup, load balancer. This is the value. Here it is using an intrinsic function to get the backup load balancer dot DNS name. So you get all this information from the, if you go to the documentation of load balancer, you can get a list of attributes from there. So you don't need to worry about these things. We try to cover some of the attributes in the next videos as well. And condition create node resource, you can add some conditions as well and get instance ID. It will become more complex for you. I think let me give you my example and it will be easy for you. So let's go to the example and we'll elaborate. So this is a CloudFormation. As I have previously mentioned that I will be using CloudFormation with the help of SAM, the function. So what I'm going to do is here, I have defined a parameter. So this time I will be referencing, I am using image AMI and I have defined this image AMI as a parameter from the deploy.sh. I will show you the deploy.sh as well in the next couple of minutes. So in the image AMI, I have just defined it as a type which is string and description AMI ready to launch. This is the description. And you have also noticed there's an error coming down. Okay. So if you see this one CFN length, I will give you also brief idea about this lint particular extension which you can use. And here is giving string is not one of this AWS. I will see the error. I have not checked that, but maybe we are getting an error or maybe we get not, as I am not getting this error over here. So maybe it's not an error, it is just something missing. Okay, we will check and evaluate if it's camera error, then we'll try to fix. As is a lab environment, just expect some mistakes or things happening and we will then troubleshoot. This is also a very good learning things. I have defined two parameters. One is image AMI and the other one is environment. Okay. So pretty much it has the default value dev and we have defined the allowed values as well. And then we have defined the description. And here I'm defining the mapping. In my case, I will be using the environment to be informing, okay, so if this is this environment, then you have to use these resources. Although I'm using instance type, let me make it t3.micro for prod, otherwise it will be very costly. Okay, so let me deploy this thing. So I have defined the mapping. I am creating a resource, which is my instance ID. This is my instance I'm creating. The type of my instance is compute, and the property I'm using a parameter over here, image AMI, and inside the instance type. So it will check FindInMap. I need to check what is the environment instance type. This is what I'm getting from the mapping. Okay. Basically, you can define this intrinsic in the multiple ways. Either you can this way FindInMap, and then you can go with the same thing like this, or you can also follow the same thing as well. Okay. It is up to you. It's like how you are easy. So for the parameters reference function, I am comfortable with this one. But for mapping, I am comfortable with this one where I'm defining, okay, so this is the map. You need to reference to environment. And then you need to check the instance type. Okay. And now in the output, what I'm doing is instance ID. I've defined this is logical name, description, the ID of the created EC2 instance, value, reference, my instance. So here I will be getting the my instance value. Okay. Export. I'm also exporting the value because I want to show you something why I'm exporting this value and how we can use in the next or other stacks. All right. So now I'll move on to deploy.sh. Here I have defined the environment variable. Okay. And I have also defined one other thing, which is image AMI. This is what I'm defining here. Okay. And I have defined both variables inside the parameters override. Okay. So this is the thing which I have changed, and for your, I think just to keep a little bit more deeper in concept, I have used this one. Okay, so let's go to our environment and deploy and see how this goes. So first thing is we need to package this particular template. All right, packaging is done. All right, so I am doing package. Now I need to deploy.sh. Here you can see that I am using All right, it gives some error. Let's fix the error first, then we go there. So error is failed to create a change set for the stack. Okay, an error occurred while calling the change set. Okay, deployment failed. Please fix the error above. Oh, so the error is parameter environment must be one of the allowed values. Okay, so parameter what we're using. So parameter is test prod. I think we are doing some mistakes in the parameter. So what I have to find? Oh, okay. UAT. I think let's use UAT because we are using UAT name. So instead of test, let's upgrade the value. Okay. Yeah. So I will be using UAT. And is there any other point? All right. And one thing which you notice is I'm using another intrinsic variable substitute as I'm using a variable name here. Okay. So that's why I use substitute here. All right. So let's save this one. Save. All right. Now let's see how this works or not. Let me make this screen a little bigger. The package successful. I hope it won't give the error. Ah, yeah. So it's the one environment issue which we have just cleared. So now you can see that parameter override is image AMI, which we are using this one, and environment is UAT, which we are using. Okay. So as we are using UAT, if you go to the mapping, we should be having the instance created as t2.micro. Okay. We are using the UAT over here. So that's why I think I have updated this value here as I think I mistakenly added test here. Otherwise, it should be UAT. Okay, let's proceed with the change. The change that created successfully. Let's create this one. So now if you go back to this one in the CloudFormation, you will notice it has start created templates, and if we go to events, we can see delete complete. Okay. Review in progress. Why it's showing review in progress? Ah, create in progress. Okay. I think let's see. Ah, I was using this one. So I was using others anyway. So create in progress. Have you noticed this thing? This is the stack which I just created. And if you go back, so you have noticed in the previous video we are not getting the output, but here we are also getting the output as well, which is the value is this is a value which is running in FE0. Okay. So let's go to the CloudFormation console with the for EC2 instance and see what is the value over there. So we come back here, EC2 here, instance created successfully. And as we are in UAT, it should be t2.micro and the instance ID should be um, FE0. Okay. All right. So this is the one which you have just created. You can see that this is the name FE0 and the value is t.micro. So this is see, you can see that we have verified for dev, we have created these things successfully. And one thing which I want to tell you at the last, we have taken the export of this particular output. Okay. So if you see on the left hand side, we are using exports. So if you come back to export, we can see we export this value. And then in the later, you can say videos where we are going to use nested stack, I will be referencing to this export value. Right now we have export, and if we want to use this value in some other stack, we are going to import this value. So this is all about mappings and outputs. So in the next video, we will talk. In the next video, we will discuss something else. Thank you so much. Keep watching and keep learning.